G'day, I'm Barb Hyman, CEO and founder of Predictive Hire, and I'm so pumped to be joined today by Meahan Callaghan, the CHRO of Redbubble. Welcome, Meahan.
Thanks, Barb. Good to be here. Glad you're pumped.
Now, I know that it's a relatively new role for you, but being a CHRO is not new to you at all. Can you tell us a little bit about your career journey as a CHRO? It's such a big mouthful, isn't it, that title?
Well, it is, and career journey is such a nice way of saying you're really old. I have been, I've been in HR for, well, I'm 51, so 30 years. So that's terrifying. I've done Foxtel, AMP. I was at Seek for 10 years. That's the big role that I loved enormously. I've done some consulting work at places like Mecca, Afterpay, and now I'm at Redbubble. So yes, lots of different roles in lots of industries.
And Redbubble's listed business here, listed company on the Australian Stock Exchange, but maybe not everyone knows what they do. Just give us a brief blurb about what they do as a company.
Sure. Yeah, sure. It's an e-commerce business. It was founded in Melbourne. It's global. In fact, most of our revenue comes out of the US, so we're well and truly global. Basically, we bring artists, customers, and fulfillment together. So somebody walks up to even me, Barb, and says, "That's cool. You could make money out of that. That's a really great design or a great creation." I can upload that onto the Redbubble site, choose what sort of products, more traditional things like prints and canvases, or I can say I want it on a mouse mat, or I want it on a mug, or a hat, depending on the type of design. I can upload that, and then a customer can go and buy it online. We can do print on demand, so it doesn't matter that you're ordering one mug. We can print that and ship that to you.
Okay,
It's
okay,
really cool. Yeah.
okay. Enough about the company. We want to get back to you now.
Oh, and it's really good, Barb.
Okay. So the last four roles you've had, message media, well, you were at Seek, which is the number one job board. I don't think just in Australia, maybe in APAC. I think anyone in HR would know of Seek. They're a global business, then message media, then Afterpay, recently acquired by Block, and now Redbubble. They're all tech companies. What is it about working in tech companies that you find really attractive?
Um, One thing is you have job security, which is fantastic because you're disrupting the other industries. So I love that idea. Um, I love the innovation that sits in tech companies. So they're always trying to do things simpler, faster. I mean, you used to look for a job in the Saturday Age newspaper, and it used to be really, really thick. You just wouldn't even think of doing that now. You expect to look for a job whenever you like. So I love that we're looking at the future and we're future oriented companies. That's what I love about them.
And so, sitting through the decades of your work
Yes.
in that, and I'm laughing because I'm the same too, it's the same vintage as you, geez, a lot has changed
Yes.
in the HR space. Like, do you feel it's changed enough? Like, what has been the change that's been good around HR in tech companies in particular?
I think the employee engagement focus has been good, without a doubt. That was not how I was trained. I was trained to do process, policy, compliance, and they were the main things. And that's not just because I was in a junior role back then, that was the main focus. You didn't really focus on employee engagement. That was much more at the sort of the union's job, was to worry about whether people were happy. So I think that's a fantastic thing, that my job is to make sure that people are happy and productive, and that, there's never one higher priority than the other. So I think that's the best thing that's happened in our time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Though I think sometimes, high engagement doesn't always correlate with high productivity,
No.
in my view. So it can be a bit of a false metric.
Yeah.
And so in my space, the amount of money that's gone into HR tech is just mind blowing over the last decade.
Yep.
But part of me still feels like the last great innovation in HR was the Netflix culture deck. It was not technology. What do you think? What technology do you feel has, if it has, really transformed the way HR works?
Um, it's got to be the back of house stuff. That's where it's the most useful. and that's where it's come the fastest. Definitely in recruitment. I know that's where you guys are, and that's, that is a rich place. The evolution of the ATS, the fact that, you can put an ad somewhere and that links to a system, and, the customer candidate only has to put their data in once. That's all fantastic stuff. The HR database is great. Like, I don't, we can't imagine a time without it now. So that stuff is really good and innovative. I'm struggling on more. So there's some more productivity things like Zoom, for example. I mean, you just couldn't have done our jobs without Zoom, or Zoom equivalents. So I think those things are great, but I wish it's almost like if you plotted it, there's so much in one area and other areas go begging a little.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think Zoom and Teams saved us during the pandemic. I don't know how work would have continued without the combination of both. Like, when you look forward and you imagine if you had to, start your own startup in HR tech and create something that really helps serve what the future is going to look like. Maybe if we start with, what are the challenges of the future? With virtual talent being working virtually forever, it seems like we're never going back to the old way, and talent becoming more of a battlefield. What are the key problems, challenges that you're facing in the next 2 to 5 years around people?
Yeah. So it's not weird. It's just the same problem I was facing, when I first became sort of a head of HR in 2005. It was, how do you retain and select and find talent? And it's the same problem, and it's the same issue. It's just in a different climate and a different day. So now it's, how do I find talent that can work remotely? How do I find talent that is neurodiverse? How do I find talent when equity, was kind of all the rage in the last 3 or 4 years, and now we're seeing articles that say companies are moving to cash because share markets are so volatile. So it's the same problem with different environmental factors, I think, is the thing. And I think the move to sort of the first evolution of things was, how do you make the process flow and the sausage factory work properly? Whereas now it's, how do you actually spot individualization, and how do you keep the individual really important in the process? So, I mean, the old performance management systems, the job description led to the objectives, led to this, led to that. Well, if partway through that process you found out that somebody was autistic, or couldn't hear properly, or had real problem with some certain factor, then suddenly they couldn't be attended to by that process. So I think the individualization, which sort of makes me think of AI, but I'm not a tech person, so I stop there. That's what I'm much more interested in now. How do I put the customer in the middle, which is my employee or future employee? And I want to be able to look up the person rather than go, that's my onboarding system, that's my recruitment system, that's my whatever system. I want to start by thinking, how is Barry going? What are the chances Barry's going to leave? Is anyone thinking about Barry? And how do I do that through a system, so that I can then do actions that are not system related? That would be amazing.
That's so insightful, because everything is so designed according to process and workflow process. And, you can lose the humanity in that. I guess what that requires, obviously we have technology that does offer a personalized experience, in a certain part of the journey around applying for a job, and then, we'll be moving into onboarding. But the challenge is, is organizations, are they ready for that? You've introduced our technology in an organization, and what I've always said is that we're selling change, and it's more of a change management journey than anything.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about, what you learned from that, what you might do differently next time, and, how do you engage the right people around embracing new technology like AI that can be seen as quite scary, because the media does a brilliant job of labeling it in all sorts of different ways. And it's not always safe. You have to really understand the technology that you're using and make the right technology choices. How do you do that? What have you learned from that experience?
That the forces against change are so powerful. I mean, we had International Women's Day yesterday, or in Time Zone Australia yesterday, and amazing to listen how far women have come. I went to a couple of speeches, and then how far they haven't come. And you think, and the person who was speaking was Nicola Roxon, and she was talking about it's just a very long change cycle, and we have to appreciate that. I think sometimes maybe this is a theory that HR is working against very fast change cycles within the company. And for us to try to talk about a longer change cycle, we lose our audience really fast. So I think we have to try not to move it too fast. But at the same time, some of it maybe you just do by stealth and not actually engage people and just start proving it through commercial, reality rather than lobbying people up front. She spoke yesterday about, was there certain things that they as a government ignored on the female front because it was destructive, but maybe they should have lent into it. Maybe HR should lean into this stuff more. I mean, you think an argument like, because then we'll have a more diverse workforce, or at least more inclusive, and so people from minority groups will be included. You would think that argument would land, full stop. But it lands, people in principle go, yeah, that's fine. I love that. I'm signed up to that. But the process of change doesn't then make me want to do that. We just do something quicker and easier and have a morning tea and celebrate a certain group. Wouldn't that be better?
Yeah.
And so
the thing I find interesting is the disconnect between the board and the C-suite and HR. So, I'm having conversations at that level where ESG and the requirement to actually demonstrate improvement around your diversity metrics is linked to capital markets. It's linked to fund investors choosing to back you. It really matters from a perspective of incentives, but somehow that's not cascading down, and we're still doing the same old things, which frankly don't work. Unconscious bias training doesn't work. Plenty of research that shows that. I still believe, by the way, you should get people in a room to do it because I think it's a really great connecting exercise. But, I obviously believe that technology is the only way that you're going to interrupt bias. So what is it that's holding back HR from saying, right, we're going to just remove CVs because CVs are all laden with bias. We're going to use technology that means that no one's personal information about colour of skin and gender is going to weigh into that decision. It just seems so rational to me. What holds them back from doing that?
I think we have to make the commercial argument. We have to talk to the people that we're selling it to, which is largely the CFO and the CEO. And so we have to talk their language. And I still sit in rooms.
Do you still think that group don't see the commercial value of diversity?
Oh, I think they see it. They don't hear it. I think they don't hear it. I think they hear the arguments of, diversity and inclusion, and that would be good for our culture. And that would be, those sorts of arguments, as opposed to, but we could make this much more profit. We would be this much more productive.
Yeah.
People would be more engaged, which we've already proven, companies have already proven the link between engagement and bottom line. So we've just got to still talk that language. Yeah. And I think functionally the gap between finance and HR is still enormous. I mean, would I want to work in a finance team? Probably not. But do I want my team heavily working with a finance team? Yes. Should we have finance analysts in HR? Absolutely.
So talk a bit about that, Meahan, in terms of the analytical capability.
Yeah, I mean, I really think we need to look at our teams and say how many people have got a commerce degree, an accounting qualification, financial analyst qualification, like you, Barb, management consulting background. How many people in our teams have that? Versus how many have psychology, HR degrees, learning and development. Both are important, but we've got to start moving to a model where it's 50-50. And I would say it's not. I've got someone in my team here at Redbubble who's an ex-accountant, and she is flying. She and I have fantastic conversations because I'm not, and she fills that gap for me. She says, yeah, but how you could do that is this and this, and it's brilliant conversation.
So look, I'm obviously a big believer that data is critical in order to drive change. What kind of data do you think matters that you ask your team to report to you on around talent?
The three in talent are still important. Time to hire, is really important, but only because, hey, if it's taking a long time, we need to start thinking about alternatives. Do we need a contractor? Do we need to do something slightly different? Because time is not good on its own. Cost to hire, absolutely, because the cost of all the meetings, all the people, the software, everything together to hire that person. And that not just the cost of them leaving, which is sort of a really old kind of metric, and then quality of hire, which I record as performing and engaged at 6 months. And I put our talent team are responsible for the first 6 months. And if they're not performing and engaged, and meaning one-way engagement, like they're enjoying it, they're thinking this is where they want to stay, and we're saying you meet the requirements of the role, not you're knocking it out of the park, but when we sat down and said we need one of these, we got one at 6 months, then I go, great, you've done a good hiring job, really good hiring job, go and do it again.
You mentioned all the meetings and so on that get involved in hiring that are often the big invisible cost of hiring.
Yeah.
You know, I remember when I was at REA, we calculated how many hours went into hiring one engineer, and it was just crazy, like 100 hours, to the point where it was slowing down the product roadmap.
Yep.
And, you know, that is often engineers having coffee chats or other leaders having coffee chats because they're wanting to measure culture fit.
Yep.
Which often can result in, you know, like for like hiring, mirror hiring. How do you get around that? Obviously, our technology can allow you to assess for values, which is ultimately what you're trying to assess for from a culture perspective. At least that's what I think. How do you engage hiring managers to say, you know, use an assessment and objective insights from that assessment to make a decision or help you make a decision around whether they're a great culture fit, rather than having the universe of people in the organisation have coffee with them, which is harder now when we're all working from home as well.
Yeah, although I suspect people think it's easier now because it's just a quick Zoom call as
Right,
opposed to having to physically move. So I think that might have set us back a little bit. I'm not sure what my engineers will say at this comment, but I think it's right. If you're struggling to hire engineering talent and it's hitting the product roadmap, which is true for nearly every, you know, tech business in the world right now, because we're the ones booming, then they don't have time to spend 100 hours hiring a person, because that's another impact on the roadmap. So you have to go with time. And where do you want to use the best of your time? Do you want to have hired a brilliant culture fit who can't code, excuse the extreme example, or do you want to be given someone who's a brilliant culture fit, take that out of the equation for you, and you just check they can do the job? They will always go the latter. They will need the first bit to be right, but they will go the latter. So then we need to say, all right, we will promise you that we will deliver the culture fit for you. It's not that you can't do it. It's not that it's time wasting, none of that. It's just we can do it a better way. So agree the 4 or 5 things you look for in that coffee meet and greet, and we will give you a report with that person that says 5 things met. Now, occasionally they'll then meet them and go, oh, I couldn't stand facing them at the team meeting every week. Fine, say no, that's fine, right? They probably won't like you either. But if you can guarantee that bit at the front, and you just have to ask for a leap of faith and then proof points by only giving them the right culture fit, then you've saved them so much time. I think the multiple interviews are false economy anyway. It's basically, if all of us think they're okay, then surely there's no risk in hiring them. So it's not
It's
just
kind
one
of like
person
bias
hiring
upon bias, isn't it?
bias upon bias. And then it's like, well, Barb said they were fine, so I don't want to say they're not fine because I really like Barb. It's got so much in it. This thing that we do, if you do, what was Google used to do, the 8 interviews or something, I think turned into like 16 or something ridiculous. Well, that was just 16 points of failure.
Yeah.
But it was sold as 16 affirmations that make it an even better decision.
That's a very interesting observation, because I think some of those companies pride themselves on how many interviews they make you go through. So in that context then, what is the role of a recruiter? Because, you know, the recruiters are bloody hard to find these days. I read a stat that 14,000 ads for recruiters went up on LinkedIn a month ago in 24 hours. And, you know, if you Google recruiter in the US on LinkedIn, 353,000 roles will come up on the US alone, which if you multiply that by basic salary, that's $42 billion that companies are committing to spend on recruiters.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything against recruiters, but I do have a view that the role has not changed and the role really needs to change.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're using technology to arm your hiring managers, your engineers with data and insights. So, and you've got this technology that automates the screening. What's the new recruiter look like? How do they reinvent themselves?
Yeah. We at Redbubble we've just changed them to called talent partners, which is a real sign of where we're taking it. They're your partners in talent, and that's not meant to be kind of boring HR reinventing terms and thinking that they've solved something. I think they're responsible. If you talk about talent, there's always two sides: what they can do and how they do it. The talent partner will help you find the people that will do it the right way, the how. You do the what. There's no recruiter in the world that's going to say, I can spot the perfect coder better than somebody who's worked in engineering for 30 years. That's just not going to happen. There may be one or two, great, if they've specialized in that area. So their job is to go, yes, but I'll get you the ones that are really successful in this company because they've got the culture fit, whatever the culture fit might be. And I think it's a misnomer that culture fit is the same everywhere. It's like, okay, do we have processes? No. Well, I need somebody who can handle the grey. Do we have processes? Yes, we're a bank. We have to. Okay, I need someone who likes to follow process. That sort of stuff is what a talent partner can find. And they need to be able to know they can't spot it. I've been doing recruitment for 30 years and I can't spot the perfect culture fit. I can spot signs that mean they go through, but I would never say I've got your perfect person. So they need tools, technology, questions. What do they use? And they're the experts. What systems and what stuff they use, tests, whatever they use. Then I think the other part of it is knowing where the market is and being able to go to the market. I used to work with a brilliant person. I don't like calling people out, but she is brilliant, Sarah Beck at Seek. And when we couldn't find product people for love or money in Australia, which I'm sure today people think's really weird, but we couldn't, she partnered with this organisation that found them all around the globe. And so she found them everywhere but Australia.
I lost you there for a sec.
Yeah, I lost you too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll repeat and you can edit. Do you want me to?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, well, then we just go ahead then. Yeah. We'll just leave it. Keep go. New question, Barb.
Okay, new question. Um, so, candidate experience and using AI versus the human. There's a really interesting blog right now on LinkedIn based off an article around us in the AFR, which is putting to the market, do you want to be interviewed by a chatbot as a question or not? And, what I think the community forgets is that the process of applying for a job for most people is pretty awful and undignifying. Takes too long, you're ghosted, you're required to fill out multiple forms, and you're just not in a condition now, any organisation, to have a really shit process, right? You need to have something that is actually brilliant in order to keep people going and helps you communicate your EVP along the process. Like, why do you think it's taking so long for organisations to use, even though it's got the AI label, but brilliant consumer technology to deliver a brilliant consumer experience? Like, how do we overcome that? What would your advice be to me to say, get more organisations to embrace that, because it's infinitely better than the alternative and infinitely fairer?
I think you should work with the media, Barb, because being interviewed by a chatbot, I'd love you popping up and going, how would you like to find your dream job because you like the salary and you hate working there within 2 weeks? That's the difference, right? The chat, so yes, interviewed by a chatbot, what a stupid comment. But anyway, knowing you're going through a process that helps you decide if it's the right place to work as well, as opposed to having to, this whole, it's all about the employer and not the candidate thing. I think that's really important. I think no matter what, there used to be a company, gosh, I think 15 years ago, and they did a psych assessment. The first thing you did was you had to fill out a psychology assessment online. It was a large employer, they're still around. And then you would just get a pre-described, thing saying, sorry, you don't fit. And that was it. That was your whole experience. And if you rang, contacted, nobody would contact you because unless you'd come through this process, you were nothing. So it's been around a long time. I think we have to counter the feelings of today. Do you want a company where your diversity is appreciated? Do you want a company where you're going to add value? Do you want a company where your equity is actually going to go, somewhere in the next 5 years? Because great to go and get equity, but is it going to go anywhere? Do you want all of these things? Do you want a job that matches your home life? Do you want flexibility that works, for you? Do you want to have this amount of empowerment or this amount of empowerment? That would have people reading the article, because that's what we all want to know, that we never get told in a recruitment process unless you're savvy enough to ask. And then finishing with, well, that's what these systems are in place to help you navigate. And then have that recruiter or talent partner be the human in there, so that when I receive it, I don't get, please fill out this chatbot, love X company. It's, hey, let me take 5 minutes to explain to you why you're about to go through a chatbot experience and why we think it's important. And then don't have the pro forma thing going, sorry, we really wish you well in your search, love the recruitment team, which is the worst thing to send. You actually have somebody and they go, here's a tip. I don't know. This has come from Meahan Callaghan. She's been in recruitment for 30 years. Here's a tip on how you might try the next time you go through this process.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Look, I mean, I think it's been such an asymmetrical relationship for so long, which is it's always about the organisation getting what they need, and it's just tipped over now. But I also believe that there's too much HR. Like, maybe I'm being controversial saying that, but I think HR tries to manage top down too much. It's almost like we put our arms around people leaders and the organisation. If you can use technology to kind of just, uncover capability and empower people to do it from an individual level, then it's a bit like being a parent, right? If you're always navigating and shepherding your kids through problems, they're never going to really learn to do it by themselves. So I have a vision that technology is completely upending HR, and it's much more about the individual charting their journey than not. And you've got now the world of virtual work. The office is gone. What's the new culture? Is it connection? Is it conversation? Through a chatbot that really understands you. You had something interesting to say on another session you ran with our team, which is around the intersection between culture and mental health and engagement. Do you remember that? Can you talk about what your vision is there?
Oh my goodness, not really. I can't remember.
Well, I think it was about, because through our experience, because it's intelligent, it's a smart interviewer, everyone learns.
Yeah.
And that's like an epiphany. What's come through that is people don't know themselves. People don't know their strengths. They don't know how to articulate them in an interview. And so the power and confidence that we're giving, people are almost elevating self-awareness at scale, has been the most profound impact of our tech, putting aside saving money on recruitment. And so how do you leverage that in an organization? How do you take that to your engineers, and how can that help them be more successful and more engaged? That ability to know themselves.
Oh my goodness. I actually would attach success in anybody's life to being more self-aware, and whether you want to then be humble is up to you, but at least you're self-aware that you're a complete pain in the ass. I don't remember the specific comment, but I do think mental health is absolutely precious, and I think we've ignored it for a long time. And I think the idea that we have a process or a sausage factory that, particularly in recruitment, that relies on you being an extrovert who can think in the moment, who can answer, who can actually go into the recruiter's head and go, I know exactly the answer you want, so I'm about to give it. And all I have to do is follow the old STAR technique from 1973 and I'll be fine, is sad. I think it's very sad. I think something that protects my mental health. The idea of a chatbot in my mind is actually, it's so non-invasive as a way to engage with an organization. I mean, how many of us, when we jump on a website, are thrilled when they go, can you talk to me here? And you go, yeah, great, because the last thing I want to do is make a phone call. I do think that taps into a side of people that is safer, is easier, and is more tuned into me. So, I think it is really important. And then there's a time and a place. If I'm going to be working 100% remote and I'm largely doing a technical based job and my manager is quite happy to communicate in a certain way, does it really matter that I didn't perform in the interview? Because I'm actually not doing anything interview based or any of the skills assessed in the interview. None of them are going to be picked up in my job. So, I think one of the more powerful, you said it before, is the ESG stuff is popping up in executive remuneration. Apparently Nate's coming. Are we having problems?
Yeah. I mean, it's just what you're saying is fucking gold. I don't want to lose it.
The internet can't handle it, Barb.
When it gets uploaded, is it going to take away all the bumpiness? Mm. I only have two more questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. So, man, there's a lot of confusion about AI and distrust, and part of that is people not understanding the difference between um, AI versus normal software development. So, obviously, when you're building software for human use, the diversity of people doing that coding matters to how you build that product. That old story of YouTube creating a bunch of right-handed engineers at YouTube creating the ability to film videos that didn't account for the left-handed people, right? But actually in AI, it's all about the data and the training data. And the data that we use is first party, clean data, it's words, it doesn't come from CVs, it doesn't come from social media. Increasingly, I'm seeing organizations relying on AI that does come from your social media account, or it's data that comes from CVs. How do you see that? Like, does that bother you? Do you think that we have to help educate the market about the difference between first party, third party data, and to really just, ask the questions around how do you know that data is clean and unbiased? Because for me personally, as an former HR leader, I just could not use technology that is analyzing my candidate pool or my people based on what they do on social media. It just horrifies me. I feel like that kills trust, because I'm on social media in my own personal way. That's not what I want to be at work, right?
Yeah.
Or it shouldn't be something that's available to work. So, what do you think about that trend and how do we tackle that?
I think you said it before. I think we do have to go with education of people and at the point of recruitment. I'm just thinking, I don't know the how here, but imagine if we said, before you're about to do X and Y, you're about to go through a AI based technology for this recruitment process, and we're going to let you know why you should feel safe in doing so. Tick, it doesn't use third party. Tick, it doesn't do this. Tick, it doesn't do that. And people, I think, will start to go for the next one. But hang on a minute. When I did it at so and so, they told me this was okay. Nobody's given me any warning. We could do ads, Barb, you and I, of going, do you realize when you do this, if you ask these three questions and then you can feel safe about your data? It's like, remember, internet banking, how did the banks get everyone to feel okay about transferring money online? All of us used to go and check the money ever got there, and there's some people that still don't use it today. I've got a friend with a fantastic organic beauty products business, another one who's got a collagen business, and both are constantly having to say, we look the same as other products, but let me tell you how we're not. And I think
Yeah.
there is an education piece on, let me tell you how we're not.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I love that you've taken the candidate view on that, right? Like
Yeah.
leaning into them because they're the ones that really, are at risk and who you want to protect, and that protects your brand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The word's trust. It is trust.
yeah,
It's like, I don't want to trust you blindly. I want to be
yeah,
able to trust you because I know it's safe to do so.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great call to action for all of us in that space. So, Mian, last one, like what advice would you give to, someone who's in talent acquisition in this day and age? Like like you're a mum or you're a leader and you're wanting to, mentor them as to how to think about their future career, what they should invest in. What would you say?
learn about technology, which I'm glad nobody told me when I started because it's not my thing. I like the business, I just, never make me a CTO. You need to understand technology. You need to understand face recognition technology, AI. You need to understand where data goes, exactly what we were just talking about. You need to understand that. They should teach that at uni. They really should. Maybe they do, I don't know. I think the other one is you need to understand candidates, and that candidates, yes, it's the worst part of, it's one of the top 5 stresses is looking for a job, because you put yourself out there so much. But it's also, but what else is on top of that? Are they struggling to pay for things right now? And then, so that's what this job means for them. Are they thinking, oh my God, I've just had 2 children. I don't know that they're going to want to have me back. Oh my goodness, I've transgendered. I identify differently than I did 3 years ago. Are they going to accept me for that? So I think that's that healthy balance of talent, of technology, but also understanding human social change and social dynamics and those sorts of things. I mean, I used to look at CVs and I used to be, I was trained, the minute you find a spelling mistake, say no, because they're obviously hopeless, and God, I'd never have got a job. But maybe the spelling mistake was dyslexia. And what does that mean? Does that mean they don't get employed? It's just crazy. So I
Yeah.
used to do, I also went for a job where we were told don't wear pants because women don't wear pants.
Well,
And
it's interesting. We get a lot of people saying, unless there's a video, how do I make a decision because I can't see your body language? But what are you looking for in body language? Like,
and
how does body language really tell you if someone's going to be great in their role? But
where's their
there's a high
qualification in
attachment
body
to that.
language? Like,
Yeah.
where do they learn the art of body language?
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a course that you do that figures out whether or not the way someone shakes their hand, it means that they're going to be great in closing deals? It's just a really traditional heuristic that people look to. So, that's what we're trying to tackle in our business. But thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to connect again. And I feel like we've learned so much as a business from this conversation, but I know people that listen will as well. So thank you, Meahan.
Okay, thanks, Barb. See you.
Bye.